Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight. Welcome to Rod's Office Hours. Appreciate your time tonight. Tonight, if you have any questions, place them in the chat rather than the Q&A section. We'll try it in the chat tonight. Hopefully that goes a little bit easier so I can see them a bit easier. Welcome. Oil Industry Insights, Rod's Office Hours. Tonight, I'm going to speak a little bit about the Canadian oil industry. But I've been saying in the past that I find the oil industry brings us to the modern world. So I'd like to go into that a little bit. Just start this video. So again, as I say, the oil industry brings us to the modern world. I've said it a few times, and the modern world is only possible due to oil and gas. And I have a great example here of oil and gas. This is cling wrap. A few milligrams of cling wrap will preserve food for so much longer than any other material. And this is a product of oil refining. Another advantage of oil and gas, we talk a lot about transportation and how it, cars and electric cars, that sort of thing. In the video here, you see this man's he's got a killick, a traditional Inuit lamp, which is fueled by whale oil. And prior to modern oil and gas production, whale oil is how people got the primary source of light in the nighttime. So there's some cultural significance for the Inuit on the collect. So don't pass any judgment on that. But you can see here in the video, it does produce quite a bit of smoke and an aroma, which is you don't get in kerosene or petroleum products. So, but I want to talk about Canada a little bit tonight. Canada is an oil nation, and oil production is good for Canada, it's good for society, and it's good for us. So we'll just delve into that a little bit here. A little bit about myself, just a reminder. My name is Rod Gibbons. I've been a petroleum engineer and entrepreneur in industry now for 30 years. Together with my wife, Willow, we work to make doing business in the industry easier and better. I've had the privilege of working in a number of different locations and environments, and I hope to share some insights that I've learned over the years with yourselves. And again, great to see people showing up tonight and turning out. That's really great. So a little bit about Canada and its position in the world for oil industry. Proven crude oil reserves. You can see Canada is blue here, so this is worldwide. So Canada's got they're number 4 in oil reserves. And by production, daily oil production, Canada is also 4th. This was for 2024 data. And again, you'll see lots of lists of this sort of stuff. It's important that production per day, you see the U.S. is number 1 here, but reserves, they're not on this list. So, because as we discussed before, reserves are the resources that are proven that you have in the ground still to be produced, and your daily production is what you're currently selling today. So, Canada's pretty high up there on production and on reserves. And as you can see, there's quite a long list of countries, and we've talked about this as well, is that we're going to talk a little bit about Canada, but worldwide, there's lots of countries make a lot of production. So, and just to carry on this list, you can see we talked about lots of places. How much a country produces per day has a lot to do with geologic factors, but it can also have to do with government policy, social policy, and innovation. So some of these countries could potentially produce more if they had a different political environment. And not to point any out, but the United Kingdom has fallen down in this production quite drastically, and potentially not all geologic, but lots of opportunities, lots of places in the world where we can work. Here's even some more. So because there's lots of places that produce oil and gas, well, it's good. Number one, again, we're able to work in different places. Some of us are different home countries, that sort of thing. We can work or experience different cultures. And number two, the people in places where energy is produced are generally better off. If you are able to produce hydrocarbons, produce energy, then you're going to get a raise in your standard of living. I mean, again, just think of how much my life has improved thanks to this little invention. Also, the differences in production rate could also be the time frame that people have been developing oil and gas. So Canada's been doing this for quite some time. So it may have a bit of a head start on some of these countries that are just getting started in developing their oil and gas industry. So when we look at the history of oil and gas in Canada, this is from CAP, which is the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, from their site, and it just gives a bit of a history of energy in Canada. And so, not to go into every history lesson detail here, but in the 1700s, the indigenous people were using oil for medicinal purposes or for waterproofing of canoes, birch bark canoes. That was kind of that's what it was being used for, and Europeans noticed that when they came to Canada. In 1858, so that's like 170 years ago, the first commercial oil well was drilled near Oil Springs, Ontario. And this was triggered North America's first oil rush. So this was 1858. Sometimes in a lot of things, the first American sort of mechanically drilled oil well was Colonel Drake in Pennsylvania, 1859. So it was a year later. Again, it makes for a good story that they found it in Pennsylvania, but actually across the border in Ontario, they had found it a year earlier. And I think what is also kind of surprising is that it was in Ontario, because that's not normally a province we think of when we think of oil and gas in Canada. So here's the Oil Museum in Oil Springs, Ontario. Toronto is in this neighborhood, and Niagara Falls is down here, I think. And so, so there's a museum there showing all the old technology that they used back in the 1800s for oil production. But this map shows green is sedimentary basins where there's oil resources. So I know everyone, Alberta is sort of front of mind with everybody, but you can see offshore BC, British Columbia is also coming up very much in in oil production and shale production now. Yukon, Northwest Territories, the far north, Hudson's Bay, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, a little bit into Quebec even, and New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland. And Newfoundland's mostly offshore. And of course, Labrador and this between Canada and Greenland. So there's quite a bit of petroleum resources across Canada. And so, but again, we don't necessarily associate oil with Ontario. Again, it was early in the piece, and there's probably still some redevelopment there to do with new technology. That hasn't happened yet for policy reasons primarily. But rather than talk about today's issues, I wanted to go back a little bit and zoom in on the schedule here, on this history. 1858, if you recall, he said, okay, that's first well drilled in Canada, in Ontario, and it was a year before the Americans did it. And then, but 1846, it's not on this history, but I want to just focus in. This man is Abraham Gesner, and I just wanted to. We talked a lot previously. How to find a job? How do you get work? Is there work in the industry? Well, I think this man's story can tell us how to become a legend in the industry. So, and 1846 is kind of, that was before even oil was drilled in North America. So, but I do want you to put this in the context of when you're stressed about looking for a job or what choice to make career-wise, or any sort of decision anyway, because Abraham Gesner is going to teach us something about how things go. It's not always linear. So, who is this guy? He's from Nova Scotia. So this is a map of Nova Scotia. So down here is New York. There's the U.S. border. Boston, Toronto, Montreal, and then you get New Brunswick, and then this bit here is Nova Scotia, and this is Chipman's Corner. This is where this guy was born at like almost 1800 was when he was born. So sometime then. So just a guy born in a place, I think. I was going to say a farming community, but everywhere was a farming community then. I guess this is the start of the 1800s. The Industrial Revolution is just kind of coming along here. So this guy's born here, raised, gets out of school, and what does he decide to do? Well, he doesn't go into the oil industry. There is no oil industry. So what he does is he sells horses in the Caribbean. That's his business venture. He goes into business. He was pretty smart in school, pretty good, but decides, okay, finish school. I'm going to sell horses to the Caribbean, which at the time, I guess, was the energy industry, because that's how work got done. He goes to do that. What happens? The ships sink, and he goes bankrupt. So he was like 2 shipwrecks, lost all of his horses, went bankrupt. Then ends up marrying a girl, and ends up, whose father's a doctor, and says, hey, go to study medicine in London to be a doctor. So he said, okay, I'm going to do that. So then he goes to London and studies medicine. And then he does a medical degree, but he hangs out with a geologist. He becomes good friends with a geologist there, a man by the name of Charles Lyell, who was wasn't just a normal geologist. He developed a lot of geology theories and this sort of stuff. So he was heavy duty in the geology. But Abraham Gesner just sort of hung out with him. So anyway, he gets his doctor's diploma degree, goes back to Nova Scotia, and gets a job as a traveling doctor throughout Nova Scotia. And turns out he spends a lot of time picking up rocks and looking at rocks. So he's traveling around doing all this doctor stuff, but he spends more time actually collecting rocks. So then he ends up writing a book on rocks. So he's obviously that's what he's interested in. He's trained in something else, but he's got a passion for rocks. Again, interesting note when we're talking career choice, but okay. So anyway, he writes this book on rocks and rocks that he's picked up here and there. So he ends up getting a job as the provincial geologist. He's the first provincial geologist in that province. The province is relatively young. So he does a few years as the province's geologist, and basically didn't find anything, and a bunch of people invested in some coal mines and didn't, based on his reports, and also didn't get anything. So could have something to do with him not being a geologist, but I don't know. But anyway, he got fired from that. So he got fired from that job. So then he decides, of course, what would you do if you're a doctor and you've got a passion for geology? Well, he started a museum. So he started a natural history museum with a bunch of rock samples and some animal samples and that sort of stuff. That was in New Brunswick, which is just next to Nova Scotia there. Turned out people weren't interested in that, and it went bankrupt. So I think there's a museum in New Brunswick that actually still has his collection. But yeah, so that didn't work out. So and these are numbered. So steps to becoming a legend. So step number 10 was then he it didn't work at the museum. So then he went back and started working around the house, and he built an electric motor, a voltaic cell electric motor, which was relatively novel at the time. So he did that, but didn't commercialize it. Then he went to Quebec and actually discovered a bunch of fossils there. Discovered a bunch of fossils. No one was interested. But 10 years later, they made it into a national park, and everyone got interested then. But at the time, he was actually looking for coal and found a bunch of fossils. So a bit of an unsuccessful coal journey there, but found a bunch of fossils, and now this is a national park or provincial park, I'm not sure. After that, then he naturally gets a job as Commissioner of Indian Affairs for Nova Scotia, which, how that happened, okay, so sure. And don't have much comment on that whole deal, but according to a couple of sources, he actually did a pretty good job at that and was quite generous with his own money, which I can believe, given his business background. So anyway, he does that for a little bit, and then finishes that job or decides to do something else. Then he decides to experiment on some bitumen, which is like a coal sort of asphalt sort of substance that he had brought back from Trinidad when he was down there trying to sell horses. He started doing some experimenting on that and seeing if he could do anything with that Trinidad bitumen to try and get it, see if he, because at the time people were using whale oil for for lighting, like we saw in that first video. And it didn't work. So it actually burned smokier than the whale oil. So that didn't work. So then he had got some bitumen that he had picked up in Albert County, Nova Scotia. So then he called it Albertite. So he wasn't too creative with the names, but that's okay. He experimented on this, combining this with some of the a bit of bitumen and other hydrocarbon that he had brought back from Trinidad. Put that together, and then he actually invented kerosene and invented the process for making kerosene out of bitumen or crude oil. So it was called the Gesner process after Abraham Gesner. So again, so he, like I say, tried something that didn't work, tried again, different things, ends up inventing kerosene. So now, and kerosene is when you take crude oil and you distill it, you get so basically what you're doing is crude oil, and you're preheating it, and then you're putting it into a distillation tower, and you get the gas comes off the top, gasoline off the middle, and light ends, kerosene sort of off the middle, again off the middle, and then bunker C and asphalt and stuff off the bottom. So Gesner invented the process by just playing around with, well, not playing around, he was experimenting with the different bitumens and hydrocarbon rocks that he had picked up. So this is a huge discovery. Kerosene is today it's most commonly known as jet fuel. So it's what you put in a jet engine to make it run. At this time, the primary use case was kerosene lamps. So kerosene oil, which was a very clear fluid and clean burning, it would replace whale oil, which was what was being burned in oil lamps at the time for light. So and again, this is before there's been any oil wells drilled. So this guy is creating a product that is better than the current product, even though there's not really a way to get a lot of this yet. So it's still in the invention sort of phase, and it's kind of mixed up with coal oil as well. So using coal, they could also use this same sort of process, combining some of this different bitumens to get a clean burning fuel. So the man invented kerosene. Okay. So he was actually had planned to go into business again. He did do that. And had a contract to light the streets of Halifax with kerosene lamps. He ended up losing that contract to a competitor, and so didn't get the chance to. I don't know if he actually did it and then lost it, or somewhere in line, but he lost that contract. And then he also had the license to mine this albertite, which was the key ingredient here for kerosene at the time. So it was a mining operation. He actually lost that license in court because there was a question on was it coal or was it bitumen, and the court ruled against him. So he lost that. He lost the supply contract and he lost the mining contract. So you can see sort of a trend here. There's ups and downs. So we're on step number 17 here to becoming a legend. So then what does he do? So then he moves to New York City. He says, okay, we're going to start again. He goes to the US, goes to New York City. He gets a patent on kerosene A. And it was called kerosene A at the time. We know it today as gasoline. So the man patented gasoline. Then he patented kerosene, jet fuel, lamp oil. So he got the patent on it. It was his invention. He goes into business again. They start a business, the North American Kerosene Company, and then Mr. Gesner transfers his personal patents to that company so that the company would have the patents. Then they build the first refinery, the first coal oil refinery. So we're still playing in this bitumen coal kind of transition zone, transition fuel, I guess you could call it. They probably call it today. Again, this work is being done. This is going to drive the drilling and the development because now there's a market starting for this because of this work. Step number 23, he lives comfortably in New York. He doesn't get rich like you would expect because he doesn't own the patents anymore. He's just working for this company as part of the company. So he's living pretty comfortable in New York. This was on Long Island, I think, the refinery. So, and then he loses the patents on kerosene. So, what he had transferred to the North American Kerosene Company, and they they had a bit of a monopoly at this point. They get taken to court, and they lose the patents on kerosene. And again, for any engineers out there who think it's not important to have a good business partner, and I'm going to put a plug in here for our friends over at business school. It's very important that you partner up with someone who's got some business acumen and actually a business mind. It's just as important as having an engineering and technical mind, in my opinion, and in my experience. I'm sure Mr. Gesner would agree. So, because they lose the patents on kerosene, and because there was someone who filed a patent before them in the United States. It was actually filed in 1848. And so, okay, well, so what? Yeah, well, in 1846, 2 years earlier, Gesner demonstrated how he did it. He actually did a public demonstration on this is how you take this albertite bitumen and you make it into kerosene and gasoline, these distillates. So he demonstrated it, but someone 2 years later filed a patent, and that was before Mr. Gesner filed the patent. So he didn't get his paperwork in on time. So they actually lost the patent on kerosene, and then they no longer had a monopoly. But all this work and all this sort of going around led to a usable product for crude oil, lots of usable products. So he didn't get super rich, but again, we're looking, how do we get to be a legend? Well, if Standard Oil builds you a monument, then you're for the work that you've done, then you're doing pretty good. This is New Brunswick University. They've got a statue of the man, and there's his kerosene lantern. He's been inducted into the Canadian Petroleum Hall of Fame. So the work that he did was good. Again, always good to have a good business partner, but he's known as the father of the oil industry because he created the supply, not the supply, but the demand side of the business. And finally, so where do you end up? Well, you get credited for saving the whales because he actually saved the whales because whales were hunted almost to extinction, sperm whales especially, for use as lamp fuel. Gesner's process, taking bitumen and turning it into kerosene, the market went away for whale oil. So he's actually, in some circles, some people say he's credited with saving the whales. Then I think step number 28, and kind of the final step, is to get your own stamp issued by Canada Post or whatever country. He actually has 2 stamps. Father of the oil industry is the name of the stamp. So that's how to be a legend in less than 30 steps. And I would have to say that none of those steps is actually in a straight line. It's lots of back and forth and lots of experimentation and innovation. So, and I would have to say that Mr. Gesner had a very positive attitude. And because there was lots of setbacks, but he ended up really didn't create the entire industry, but he created a product that actually displaced another product, disrupted a way of doing business that allowed for the industry to be formed in behind him and actually give people the products that made their life and makes our life today better. So yeah, so that's my talk on the industry, and I went pretty specific into Canadian history and Canadian industry, but I think it is important topic. Well, it's pretty cool that this guy fails and then gets back up again. Like that's pretty cool, and really his contribution is not in what he was classically trained in. It was what his passion was, and that he found a way to make things work. So, and again, he may have benefited from having a business partner, but so that's my advice: is find yourself a good business partner. Don't be afraid to innovate. And when you're thinking about your career choices and all that you're going to do, hey, your horse business might hit a shipwreck in the Caribbean. You don't know what's going to end up coming from that. So you never know. So I think if there's no questions, just check. No, yeah. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of our series. I think you'll be able to see any of these that are on the YouTube channel. Just come in. Oh yeah, Fernando, you're right. Yeah, there's definitely the start of an industry, and we can't. Yeah, there's lots of innovation still to be done. So, if you have questions on what you should do, left or right, I would say just Gesner it. That's my new verb. Is just give it a Gesner and try it. So thanks for your time. My name's Rod Gibbons. Check out this video and others on our YouTube channel, Bounty Captor, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.